Today, I sat down with State Superintendent of Education Molly Spearman to talk about what happens if and when schools open next month. I asked her the questions that you submitted on Facebook, questions that came from parents and teachers. Now, with the growing number of coronavirus cases in our state, she wanted to make it perfectly clear that parents have an option if you don't want your child to go back into the classroom. And her excitement about the new school year was tempered because of the challenges of learning during a pandemic.
Well, it's supposed to be a very happy, exciting time with school starting back, a new beginning, and I want that to be how it is for all of our families in South Carolina. We will have school open, and it will be high quality, and I do want all parents in South Carolina to have an option to attend school that in a way that best suits their family's needs, whether that's virtually or in face-to-face. So I hope it can still be an exciting time for all of us, but it's got to be safe.
It was important for us at WLTX to make sure we got our questions straight from the parents who watch us every day. And some of our parents are also educators. So we'll start with the first question from Michelle, who is a teacher and a parent. She says, since we have seen such a rise in cases lately, why are districts receiving pressure from state government to open face-to-face?
Well, Michelle, I agree with you. It sounds as though you feel like I do that these decisions certainly should not be made in Washington, D.C. And even in Columbia, it's best for these decisions to be made locally. And I think you have to understand, though, that folks are divided on this issue. And we have to offer a safe environment for students to learn. Obviously, virtually is a safe environment. So I want all parents in South Carolina to have that option. They can right now through our 3 South Carolina charter virtual schools. Most districts are going to be offering their own virtual program for K-12. And then we have a numerous array of courses through our virtual SC here at the Department of Education that are also free for homeschool, private school, and public school parents. So everybody has an option. But I think we have to understand that there are some children who need to be face-to-face, and we do need to have that option available for them in a safe way. So I'm leaving that up to the districts as to how they might do that. It might be through some alternative schedule, but that there's some way that we lay eyes on students and see how they're doing, not just through their content, but socially and emotionally. So there really is a need for us to have that face-to-face contact. And I'm reviewing plans now, and it looks like most districts are going to have at least those 2 options available.
You all know in real time that you've lost track of thousands of students since school closed or transitioned virtually in March. How are you trying to find those students? What are the challenges in finding those students? And what happens with the digital divide for kids who may need to be educated virtually but don't have the broadband access?
Right. Well, and certainly the digital divide made it more difficult. If everybody had access to the internet and teachers could connect with students every day, it was much easier to stay in touch with them. So first, we are working on those numbers. They're coming down daily. Students are being located, and I think districts are understanding the question, because that question really is now, who have you had no contact with? So there have been meals served or telephone calls, so that districts are adjusting their numbers as students are located, and those numbers are coming down. And if they don't get to a point where they can locate a child, they are to turn those names and contact information over to the Department of Social Services. As far as the digital divide, we are working every day with our telephone providers, with our Verizon, AT&T, as we purchase hotspots, Wi-Fi, MiFis, I think they call them, to be ready for the new virtual. The virtual that we will be delivering in August or September is going to be very different than that emergency virtual that you saw in March. Higher expectations, better attendance records, a requirement for students to be online and turning in work. So districts will be much better prepared, and it will be of a very high quality. Some of that was offered, but not all. We did the best we could, but it all will be better. in the fall. So we are working on the governor's CARES Act fund allowed $20 million to purchase MiFis, and we are working not only to purchase MiFis, but we found in Horry County, for instance, within 1 week, working with the telephone company there, Horry Telephone Cooperative, they brought over 600 families online in a week, just by knowing who they were, who needed it. So that communication is going on all across the state. Down in Colleton County, we're working with the Palmetto Telephone Company there. They're getting out into those rural areas. So the accessibility is an issue, but affordability was also an issue. And with that $20 million, we are improving that status. So I think you're going to see a much higher quality of service given now.
What happens if a teacher becomes ill and it spreads to her class? Taking temperatures at the door doesn't warrant a clean bill of health.
Correct. Well, there's been federal legislation passed, the Families First Coronavirus Relief, and that gives specific information about how teachers will be covered with additional sick leave, up to 2 weeks additional leave across the board as they go through the next school year. So absolutely, a teacher would be paid and would be covered with their leave.
Coming up in the next half hour of Friends at 5, we'll talk more with Superintendent Spearman, not only about what happens in the fall, but did you know that there are 3,000 students in South Carolina classrooms right now? We'll have more for you on that coming up in the second half hour of Friends at 5. Andrew?